You wake up with a persistent mental drain, a weight that remains regardless of how many hours you've slept. In 2019, the World Health Organization classified this specific type of fatigue as an occupational syndrome, resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. They define the syndrome using three key dimensions: emotional exhaustion, a growing mental detachment from your job, and a noticeable drop in professional effectiveness. This exhaustion is a documented occupational syndrome, moving the experience into a formal medical classification. This diagram shows the hypothalamic pituitary adrena axis, or HPA axis. When exposed to chronic stress, this system remains active, continuously flooding the body with cortisol, our primary stress hormone. Over time, that constant hormonal bath alters the brain's baseline function. The amygdala becomes hyperactive, significantly amplifying how we perceive stress. At the exact same time, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for cognitive control and complex decision-making, starts to shut down. That crushing sense of being overwhelmed is the direct, measurable result of a brain operating under prolonged distress. This structural shift happens gradually across 5 stages. It begins deceptively with a high-energy honeymoon phase, before deteriorating through the onset of stress, chronic stress, and eventually a full burnout crisis. The final stage is habitual burnout. Here, the brain cements these symptoms as its permanent baseline, turning a temporary stress response into a constant physiological state. This visualization illustrates the severe physical toll of that baseline. Operating in a state of habitual burnout dysregulates the immune system and drives up the risk of coronary heart disease by an alarming 79%. A brain stuck in a perpetual stress loop inevitably leads to quantifiable, devastating damage throughout the entire human body. The Job Demands Resources model evaluates the workplace as a structural equation, balancing required tasks against the tools and time provided. When demands remain high and resources are insufficient, the structure collapses, forcing the individual into chronic stress. It is a mathematical failure of the environment. The persistent belief that burnout is caused by an employee's lack of resilience ignores the reality of a broken architecture. The exhaustion eventually breaks containment. Through a process called spillover, work-related neurochemical depletion bleeds directly into personal time, ruining rest and recovery. Through emotional contagion, or crossover, that same stress transfers outward. One individual's tension rapidly spreads to their partners, family members, and their entire working team. It operates exactly like a virus. An individual occupational hazard rapidly mutates into a highly contagious social phenomenon. This bar chart outlines the U.S. macroeconomic toll. Untreated workplace stress accounts for $190 billion in healthcare costs and $300 billion in lost productivity annually. Scaled to the corporate level, a 1,000-employee company loses $5 million annually to burnout-related disengagement. The systemic damage is pervasive. In healthcare, it increases medical errors, it cuts essential clinical hours, and reduces national labor income by roughly 2.3 to 3.6% over time. Allowing the deep structural causes of workplace exhaustion to persist actively drains the vital resources of the global economy. This systemic failure places the heaviest burden on specific demographics, with women and early career workers statistically more vulnerable to a clinical diagnosis. Recognizing the biological mechanisms and the structural roots of workplace exhaustion is the necessary first step to forcing real organizational change. We are well past debating whether or not burnout exists. The only remaining calculation is how close you are to it.